Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Raj, and I'm joined by two guys who are model citizens and will always put their lives on the line for this podcast. My good hosts, my co-hosts and good buddies, Fab and Nak.
The commitment is
for this
real.
podcast.
like Deshaun Watson has for the Browns, as per Myles Garrett.
Yikes.
On today's show, we will be breaking down the biggest winners and losers from Sunday's Week 7 slate and what trends we could take away from those performances. We'll also, as always, cover key injury updates and fab-worthy waiver wire pickups. In Ahead of the Curve, we'll highlight low-budget moves, and in Cut the Cord, we'll identify players you should drop for good. Before we jump into it, as usual, please do us a big favor. Like, follow, share, subscribe, whatever you could do. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Catch us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Please, please, please give us a follow. We post daily, and trust us, the content is fire. Nak, let's get into it right away. Who do you have as your big winner from the Sunday slate? And the way you're grinning, I think I know.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think everyone probably knows where I'm going with this, but big winner from Sunday has got to be Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it was like him against the world. It was that's all everyone spoke about this week. It was really, really nauseating. Deciding to bench, or I guess you could use the word bench, but like Wilson was technically the starter at the beginning of the year, so I guess I wouldn't call it so much of a benching, but benching your young QB who went 4-2 and was a fourth down away from actually going 5-1. That loss against Dallas. Look, he proved everyone wrong, right? Including myself. I was one of the people that was against this move, but Jay Glazer even spoke to Tomlin before and quoted, "I was the lone wolf." So like he was literally the only person that wanted to do this. Everyone else was kind of like, "Hey, we're 4-2. Like he got us there. Like give him a shot." And look, it paid off in a big way, right? And he went on to say in his post game interview, he's like, "That's why I'm well compensated." So this is for me to make the tough decisions, and
100%.
if it didn't work, I only had myself to blame. I was not going to blame anyone else. And what ended up happening? Russell Wilson came in and was the first QB in franchise history to score 30 plus points in his debut. So pretty telling. He looked really, really good in that Arthur Smith offense. It felt like it was tailored to him, like all off season, right? Like I felt like you saw remnants of prime Seattle Russell Wilson with that good defense and the way he operated the offense. Um, and I know you alluded to Raj. He went 8 for 9 for 150 yards on play action. That's
Yep.
like his bread and butter, and it was tailored beautifully last night.
Yep.
Besides a rough first quarter, he put up lights out numbers the rest of the way. Um, and the last time the Steelers scored 35 plus points and put up 400 plus yards of offense was Week 10, 2018. So you have to go back to
My God.
obviously Big Ben days for when that
Antonio
happened.
Brown
Yeah,
was on that team, wasn't he?
Big
Yeah.
Ben,
Wow.
Antonio Brown. Yeah, look, Matt Canada never put up one 400 plus yard game. Arthur Smith already has 2 this year. So
To me, that's like the essence of a CEO coach that Mike Tomlin is. Like a big decision like that, and to not have to listen to the outside noise, or I guess the inside noise of everyone else on the team. Because I think like Najee Harris seemed like he was really, I think he was talking about in one of the press conferences or one of the interviews with one of the reporters how like Justin Fields, don't be too hard on yourself. He's been awesome, and he's a really likable guy. That's what you're gonna hear from everyone, whether it's in the Bears organization or the Steelers organization. He just seems like a really humble and nice dude. But it was clear as well. It didn't look great to start for Wilson. I think we were talking about it
he
in our
had some
group chat.
bluebirds, man,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
first quarter.
But Collinsworth kept saying it, like that moon ball, that deep shot to Pickens, and I was just confused why the Jets played so much man coverage.
Yeah, it was
Like
that
it
was
made no
also
sense.
very confusing, especially after that first one that he caught,
Yeah,
like that I think it was 44 yards or something. But
yeah,
I mean, look, that's one guy who's definitely happy. Is George Pickens?
yep,
He's getting those shots down the field now,
totally.
and look what happened when Russell Wilson comes in. So, barring the games that are obviously playing tonight, Russell Wilson is QB1 on the week in fantasy, 26.86 points. George Pickens is tied for wide receiver 2 with 22.1 points. And Najee Harris was RB13 this week with 16.2 points. So, I mean, fantasy purposes, this is
That's great.
huge boost to Steelers playmakers where, like, okay, you had to start Pickens, I guess, but he was not a must start in a lot of lineups, right? You could have easily made the case to bench him. Um, but I mean, him and Wilson now from that are now must starts in,
Yeah.
I think, every single week going
Fab,
Yeah, it
I have
forward.
also helps that they did it against like a very good defense too. Like it's not as if they went up against a scrub defense like they did in prime time against the Jets defense that for all accounts are a good defense.
Yeah.
And they really performed. Russell Wilson still has a long ball. We said it before, Nike, you said at length, he still can throw that long ball, and that's exactly what they were missing.
Yeah, look, he doesn't have the escapability that that Justin Fields has, right? Like Fields can take off, and there was an instance actually in one play in particular, I believe it was in the third quarter where he missed his read, and if it was Justin Fields to the right side of the field was completely wide open, 30-40 yard run easily, and he ended up throwing the ball away, broken play, whatever. But I mean, with Fields, yeah, you have that more dynamic player, but Russell Wilson is the better passer, and it was just evident. It was more than evident last night. So, I mean, like I said, big winner would be the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, and just the skill positions now where you could actually start with confidence, I believe, going forward.
Let's move on to thanks, Nak. Fully agree. I think it was a really good performance by Russell Wilson. Fab, let's move along to your big winner from the Sunday slate.
RB1's getting it done. I feel like this was the week that we've all collectively been waiting for when it comes to production from the RBs that we spent big draft capital on. So Jahmyr Gibbs, 32 points. He had that beauty 45-yard house call TD. Saquon Barkley, 26.7 points. Revenge game achievement unlocked as he completely destroyed the Giants
It went
defense there.
off, man.
Yeah, he went off. Actually, I even saw a clip where Nick Sirianni was asking, and this is why, like, I'm never gonna have any hate against Saquon Barkley, as a Giants fan. Like, yeah, Nick Sirianni was asking him, "Do you want to go back in? You want to hit your PR? You want to get your personal record for yards right?" He's like, "No, the game's out of hand. Like, it's okay. Let the young guys play. Let the young guys eat." And
I
Sirianni was
love
like,
it.
"You sure you want to go in? I want you to go in. I want you to go in." And he's like,
That
"No,
was
like
13
I'm
yards
good."
away.
Yeah. He's like, "No, it's okay. I want to let the young guys eat." And I'm like, you know what? Like, it's hard not to like Saquon. He's been a true pro throughout the process, but yeah, but good on him. He had a monster day. Joe Mixon again, 26.4 fantasy points, 3 healthy games of 26 plus points. Every single game he's played a full 4 quarters, you're getting at least 26 points out of him, which is ridiculous. Brees Hall, 26 points. He's actually averaged 24 fantasy points per game since Hackett is no longer play calling. And he's also out-touched Braylon Allen 41-6 in the last 2-game span. And I also want to touch on a quick tweet that I saw from JJ Zakariason.
Zacharyson.
I'm sorry, what was that? How you pronounce it?
Zacharyson.
Zacharyson, late round QB on Twitter. Since the Jets coaching changes, Brees Hall has averaged a running back rush share per game of 83% and a target share per game rate of 20%. Those numbers before coaching changes were 67 and 17% respectively. So they're leaning on Brees Hall a lot more, and you can see it. Bijan Robinson, second game in a row, 20 plus fantasy points. He had 23.3. Kenneth Walker the third, 23.3 also. Third game in the last 4 of 20 plus fantasy points since his 2-game injury. And Kyron Williams, just under 17 points. No receiving game work, but also no punts returned. Kyron has scored a TD in his last 9 games dating back to last season, which is ridiculous. So hero RB strategy seems to be paying major dividends, just as we're reaching the middle of the season, and it's exactly what fantasy managers need. It's great to see your top dogs get some work and get their points. And quickly, honorable mention, Nick Chubb. Didn't have an amazing game, but he did score a touchdown. Got about 11 fantasy points. But it's nice to see him back on the field producing after that horrible injury last year. So good on him.
Another honorable mention, Fab, Josh Jacobs, 20 points. I don't know what you have against Mr. Josh Jacobs, but he actually had more points than Kyron Williams. So just thought I'd put that in there.
I chose between Kyron and Josh Jacobs, and I chose Kyron because Josh Jacobs. Nope, that's not true. I don't have
Someone
Kyron
was
at all.
triggered there. I feel.
I can see
yeah,
that.
Man.
Josh Jacobs.
Fab is
that
always
was his only. You know, that was his only receiving touchdown ever.
Josh. Yes. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I remember that stat. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's his first career receiving touchdown.
That's nuts.
He's not really a pass catching back though.
No, he's
never.
not.
He was never that guy.
That one year, I think the year he led the league. I'm looking at. No, he had back-to-back years of 64 receptions. 2021, 2022, and even 2023 had 54 receptions. Not a crazy yards per reception, but he could catch it.
But I think that's what I'm more meant. Like he was not known for like his catch and run abilities. I feel.
Yeah, for sure. I am a big Josh Jacobs defender because I feel he gets. I've owned him quite a bit, and I feel he gets. It's like undue hate because it's not super pretty the way he plays. It's very bruising, but I feel he's in the top 10 running backs for sure. I would say
like real NFL running backs.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the problem in fantasy. Aside from that year, he led the league in rushing, 12 TDs. 328 fantasy points, but
from a real running back perspective, you can actually say that.
Not that long ago.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, but great list, Fab. I fully agree, and it's great to see the running backs kind of back at it because it's always been up and down with the running backs typically.
Yeah.
My winner is the Detroit Lions being the best offense in the NFL. So the Lions are second in points per game at 31. Goff is second in completion percentage at 73 completion percentage points. It's nuts. Like back-to-back games where he's basically completing. He has like only 2 or 3 incompletions per game. First in yards per attempt at 9.3. Overall, the team is fourth in rushing yards with 155 per game. And I've said it many times on this podcast, and I will never utter the same words again, that the book on Jared Goff is to beat him with pressure. I will never say that again, that he cannot defeat pressure. According to Next Gen Stats, he was under pressure on a season high 51% of his dropbacks against the Vikings defense that probably applies the most pressure on all QBs. And he was 10 of 11 for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. And on the year, he's averaging 11.6 yards per attempt under pressure. No other QB is at 9.
If we stay on Goff for a second,
go for it.
There's been MVP chatter lately. Like
he's
if I ask you right now, Raj, like is he your MVP right now?
Great minds think alike, Nak, because that was going to be my last point about Goff. So I fully agree that.
Oh no,
it's fine. No, don't worry about it. It's all good. That's why great minds think alike. 100% leading MVP candidate in my opinion. The team is an absolute wagon. They look fantastic. Again, best offense in the league, most complete offense, and I know we're going to talk about it in Love Hate tomorrow. And you had picked Laporta to as a love, but
let's not talk about that.
No, but it's. This is the type of offense.
It's so strange, man.
But I think there's so many good players, and Ben Johnson is the type of OC that I think they get everyone involved and they exploit mismatches more than anyone. And I think we all said during Love Hate this was going to be a Jahmyr Gibbs game. And again, not to dive too much into Love Hate, but this was a perfect Jahmyr Gibbs game, perfect game for him. And of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown he's always gonna eat. But receiving contributions from Khalif Raymond and Tim Patrick. So yeah, anyone can get 25 points at any given point with this team. So
I think they're the best team in the league.
Yeah, I think so too.
Arguably, yeah. Especially after being Minnesota. I think this was the biggest test for them.
Minnesota could be close, but I think Darnold's been good, don't get me wrong, but he's missing that it factor. And he's still a QB that's going to throw like an interception into a game, whereas like Goff is less likely to make that mistake, in his career nowadays, should I say. So, man, those Lions look really good.
Yeah. And I also have a quick honorable mention, just the Bills passing game. Josh Allen has best game of the season, 21 of 33, 323 yards and 2 touchdown passes. And I think just Cooper's addition slides all the wide receivers down in the pecking order. He becomes that main guy on the outside. Shakir and Curtis Samuel could work on the slot. We saw Coleman have a really good game. And they could even open things up for Kincaid, who went 3 for 52 with some nice catches. So just wanted to mention the Bills passing game as well. Nak, who is your main loser from Sunday?
I'm gonna stay on Sunday Night Football. I'm gonna say Aaron Rodgers and the supporting cast. You know, I like Rodgers, man. I think everyone knows I like Rodgers. I'm okay with what he says and whatever. I think the media kind of takes stuff out of proportion, but he talks a big game in his press conferences and on, you know, he came out and said Sunday Night Football is electric. I live for these moments and I don't understand how we come out flat and unmotivated. I mean, like at a certain point, dude, look in the mirror. You did not play good at all. Like you did not play great. It was a team effort for sure, but it starts with the quarterback, and he did not play good. He threw 2 interceptions to undrafted free agent Beanie Baby Bishop on Sunday Night Football. I mean,
Who?
yeah, undrafted free agent out of Virginia. 2 ints, and okay, you could maybe say the second one was a little bit of Garrett Wilson's fault, off his chest and then into the hands of the defender. But I mean, Rodgers 16.4 points, Devontae Adams 6 points. They were supposed to have 10 catches and 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Garrett Wilson 13.1 points, Lazard 9.8 points. So fantasy wise too, like that offense is very very underwhelming, and I think everyone tries to keep hyping them up for what they because they have all these flashy players, but end of the day this team is 2-5. They're not a good football team end of the day, and I don't know, man. They've got to go, I think, what, 8-2, I think, the rest of the way to potentially make a wild card spot. Like that's gonna be
They got to
very
ball out,
tough.
man.
Yeah,
It's
they
it's a
need to go
very
on
tall
some kind
task.
of a they need to go on some kind of a run here to
The
the team seems like a mess. I think
R-
there's just
R-
too much circulating. There was too much buzz, and it's just something's not working.
Rodgers seems off. I don't know if it's just me, but he
He's
just
old,
doesn't seem
man.
like he's
He's
really
old.
on time with his wide receivers. There are moments where the timing is perfect, but the consistency is lacking in the first 7 games of the season so
yeah.
far with him, I find.
Well,
And it's I don't know if it might get better throughout the rest of the season. You would hope so, just with more repetition, especially now with Devontae Adams being there. But it I don't
it's
know.
the
It
offensive
leaves a
line.
lot to be desired.
It's the offensive line, and they're just relying on quick game, kind of like under 3 or under 2.5 seconds per
Seconds,
throw,
yeah. It's the
and
shortest of his career.
it's he can't move enough either in the pocket when there's getting enough pressure. And again, we talked about last week, someone who relies on pinpoint accuracy. He's not being allowed the time to be accurate anymore.
A lot of
Brees
batted
Hall,
down balls last night
yeah,
too
a
from him too. There
lot.
was I think 2 or 3
Yeah,
easily that were
Yeah,
batted down at the line.
Brees
yeah.
Hall had one big reception last night for 54 yards. Like he's been looking for him everywhere, but apart from that, like it was very anemic.
Yeah, and that one was a lot of missed a lot of missed tackles.
A lot
My
of breaking
God, did
tackles too there,
that
but
play was very, oh man, doesn't matter. We got the W.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
Fab,
counts.
who's your loser, Fab?
Sticking from a team perspective, I'm going to go the San Francisco 49ers. So apart from Kittle, it was pretty much a game to forget for the entire Niners offense. Purdy completed 55% of his passes through 3 INTs. Big credit to KC defense that are keeping them in games and really giving them a chance to continue their undefeated streak. Purdy also did have 2 rushing TDs, which ultimately saved his fantasy day. But, he's now dealing with a completely void wide receiver room. Deebo I think he played 3 series, didn't see any targets at all. Like he now has some sort of pneumonia. And from what I understand, his return timetable is unknown. Ayuk tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. Mason was more or less, he was efficient on the ground, but, still Still pretty underwhelming. Only got 58 yards on the ground for like 9 fantasy points in total. Niners are now sitting 3-4 on the season, outside of first in their division, and you can comfortably say that their season is in doubt from a playoff perspective, right? With all the injuries that they have and what they've sustained, and the fact that their offense is operating a largely inefficient manner. I mean, think about it. They're going to have to win that division to make the playoffs, because both those wild card spots in the NFC, they're going to go to the NFC North. You have to think. So the only way that they're going to make the playoffs is going to be winning that division right now.
So Fab, who is their biggest challenger? Who makes you really afraid in that division if you're the Niners?
See, the Seattle's been playing really well.
They just knocked them out though. Like the Niners just they destroyed them in Thursday Night Football.
They're still an efficient offense though. Like Niners, the Seahawks I'm referring to. Like
I think they still win the division.
Yeah,
they're just gonna be. It could be like a one and done.
I agree.
Playoff thing, but there's no one in the division that I'd be scared of, and the division is very underwhelming.
So let's just take a look at their schedule. Hold on a second. Let's take a look at their schedule real quick. Okay, so they play the Cowboys upcoming Sunday Night Football. You would imagine that should be a win because the Cowboys are not doing well.
We don't know.
They play the Bucks. That's not a guarantee. They play the Seahawks again. Divisional game. That's not a guarantee. They play the Packers. Also not a guarantee. The Bills. Also not a guarantee. The Bears are playing well. They go up against the Rams. Fine. You can chalk it up as a win. The Dolphins, Tua is going to be back. You don't know what's going to happen there, but fine. I'll give that as a win. They play the Lions and the Cardinals.
They definitely have a tough schedule. They have a tough schedule. Huge, tough schedule for sure.
I think we all thought the
division for me is a non-factor. It's more their schedule they have coming up right now and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah.
And you can't say for certain that like, oh, you know what? Yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. Like,
I think we all thought the NFC West was going to be better than it was. I thought the Cardinals would be better than it was than they were. I think the Rams. Let's see what happens with Kupp and Nakua and some of their offensive line coming back. I think Seattle has been fine, but very inconsistent as well.
Inconsistent is that's what
we'll see. To me, that's still the best team in the division.
I mean, from an offense perspective, they both put up about the same. They've put up the same amount of points so far after 7
the NFC North, though, it's going to be the first division to probably have all 4 teams go to the playoffs.
That'll be wild. Anyways, great call on the Niners, and I think it was only a given because of how good the Chiefs defense has been this year, especially on a running perspective.
I would like to quickly mention, if that's okay, an honorable mention or dishonorable, I suppose. The Giants, another big loser as well. They benched Daniel Jones in the fourth quarter, which I don't think was a bad call, but the offense has been extremely anemic. Malik Neighbors was even complaining about not getting targets, even though he's been open, so that's already starting. Without left tackle Andrew Thomas being in that lineup, and he's basically out for the entire season. Well, he's out for the entire season. He destroys anything of that team ever happening at all this year. Not that the expectations were high to begin with, but there was some level of expectations that they could be somewhat competitive. That's not going to be the case anymore.
And he took 9 sacks yesterday.
Yeah.
Guys, let's not talk about the Giants. That could have been an email.
TJ Watt is up next.
That could have been an email.
Oh, dude, I'm debating about not even watching that game. I have that game is not going to be interesting at all.
I'm not watching the Giants until we have a new QB. I think I've pretty much said
you have a good reason to watch that. It's going to be a win for you guys. It's always fun to watch your team win. I forgot what that feels like.
Wait. Yeah, I was looking at this. Why are we getting the Giants, and why are the Steelers on primetime again? Every week.
Because of Russ,
why can't they be on primetime?
Because of Russ.
It doesn't have to be every week.
Good teams on primetime.
Oh, no.
Unlimited.
No. We don't even.
You got to be on unlimited.
And the Giants, again, this is a Sunday night or a Monday nighter?
Monday. Oh, I don't think you can flex the Monday. That's why.
The Giants were just on Sunday Night Football. Anyways,
it's going to be 3 in a row for the Steelers. It's weird.
It's enough.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
It's too much Steelers. Too much Jets. No more Jets talk. Next pod, no more Jets talk. Colts pass catchers with Anthony Richardson at QB. So Richardson was back from a 3-game absence, and he did not look any better than he did prior with his hip injury, I felt. Outside of his 26-point performance in week 1, he's been at 10, 5, 5, and 9 fantasy points in his ensuing 4 games. So anyone who drafted him really high, Knack, I'm sure you're having a ton of buyer's remorse.
I'm just lucky, very lucky I hit on Sam Darnold late.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think anyone who drafted him high is feeling a ton of buyer's remorse. He's completed 48% of his passes on the year, 3 TDs and 6 INTs. And outside of his rushing upside, Richardson, in my opinion, should be benched until further notice. And frankly, so should Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, which is disappointing because with Flacco, Downs was at, in 3 games, 19 points per game and a 28% target share. With AR, he's at 3 points per game and a 21% target share. And Pittman, he had a respectable 15 points per game with Flacco in 3 games. He's down to 7.3 PPR points per game with AR. So get AR out of your lineups. Get Downs and Pittman out of your lineups. If Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and T.Y. Hilton and Dallas Clark were his wide receivers and tight ends, I wouldn't even start them. I don't even know how the Colts are 4-3. They're lucky to be that in that position right now. Just bench AR until further notice.
Anthony Richardson rushed 14 times on Sunday.
That's what he does.
That's madness.
Yeah,
That's madness.
I think that's the amount of starts he's had in high school and college before getting into the NFL.
That is ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
His pro day made him get drafted that high. Like that was the reason because everyone saw that bomb, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's the reason why.
We all said it. He's a specimen of an athlete, but he's extremely raw. He's extremely raw. And
it's the same thing with Trey Lance, to be honest. It's the exact same thing that happened with Trey Lance with a lack of starts, lack of just lack of ability to kind of process at the quarterback position. So
it sucks because all their playmakers, like, forget it. Like, but now I ask you, at what point do they say, "Hey, we have a winning record. Like, do we want to win this year?" At what point do they say, "Hey, let's just start Flacco and let's like the Canales route," with Andy Dalton? Although that didn't really work
my
out.
thinking is that they probably know they're not a Super Bowl winning team. And it probably from a management at the exec level, like the GM level, the ownership level, they're like, look, we're not a Super Bowl winning team. Obviously, the players they're playing to win, but the thinking behind it is this year it's about Anthony Richardson's development, especially because they lost a year already.
But wouldn't he be able to develop better though behind Joe Flacco as a quarterback and actually see what a quarterback is supposed to be doing and listening to the play calling and all that stuff? Like I know he needs reps and everything.
He needs reps. He did not play he played in high school. I think he played sporadically at Florida. 1-year starter. And that's why guys like Jaden Daniels, like they're thriving. He had, I think, 50 something starts.
Yep.
He had 16,000 passing yards.
Well, a lot of the QBs that were drafted this year are a lot of those COVID QBs.
Yep.
So they had that extra year or two in the systems. Like I think it was even, I forget who it was that had like 5 seasons. I think it was Jaden Daniels. He played he played for five college seasons. Another one of them was one of those COVID years, and that you can see that makes a difference. Totally. Anthony Richardson doesn't have that body of work, and I just don't see the benefit of him starting. To be honest with you, when I feel like he could learn more sitting behind a seasoned vet like Joe Flacco, and also gives the Colts a better chance to win. But from a fantasy football perspective, I think in 1 QB leagues we can all say that he's droppable. At what point do you start considering dropping him in a 2 QB or even a super flex league?
I think because it's the QB position is too valuable in a 2 QB league that I don't think he's droppable
at all.
To have him on waivers because there's just not many out there. He becomes a buy replacement at best at this point, unless he could show something. Super flex maybe more droppable, but it's hard to drop QBs in a 2 QB league. It's like it's.
I don't think he's droppable at all.
No, in 2 QB leagues you just see you can't. You need a QB, right? You need that extra guy. Like who? Okay, so let's do this exercise, Fab, quickly. Let's say in our league,
yep,
you're dropping Richardson for who? Like,
I'm
are you picking
dropping
up another
Richardson.
QB, or you're keeping just your two QBs in your lineup and then figure it out for your buys?
I'm dropping it for another QB if there's another QB out there that like I feel a lot more comfortable with. And right now that bar keeps on getting lower and lower and
So
lower
who would
with
that
Anthony
be?
Like,
Richardson.
who would that? That's what I'm saying. Who would it be?
Honestly, like
Take our
Gardner
league for an
Minshew,
example.
and come at me
Oh
in the
my god.
comments. I don't care.
No, come on,
No,
Fab.
no,
Guys,
that's nuts, dude.
Come on,
That's
come on.
guys,
nuts.
what has he
No,
done
no,
in the
no, no.
last 3 games?
The rushing,
Well,
the rushing.
Come
they
on.
just signed Desmond Ritter off of the Cardinals
We gotta
practice
move
squad.
on. We
Come
gotta
on.
we gotta move on. We gotta move on.
He's 7 points, 5.24 points, 8.76. Come on, guys. Come on. And
Buddy,
his
look at
schedule is
Minshew
hard.
stats. Let's move on to
Yeah, I don't
injuries,
know.
but look
And he
at
hasn't
Minshew
even played.
stats. Yeah. No. Because at least AR still has the rushing upside. Moving on to injuries before we get on to Fab Waiver Wire. So as we talked about earlier, Brandon Ayuk confirmed to have a torn ACL. Deshaun Watson confirmed suffered season-ending Achilles injury. Weird situation where
it.
yeah,
You deserve it. That was
that's
wild.
what they chant at
That's rough,
WWE pay-per-views
That's wild.
in a good way. Like when guys win titles. It was a weird situation where Jameis Winston was the emergency third QB before the game. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, he ended up replacing Watson, and then he suffered a finger injury. So his week 8 status is unclear. So we'll have to see on that front. The Jaden Daniels rib injury reports are positive, but it seems like he's week to week. He's hopeful to play versus Chicago. I know his mom tweeted out that he's fine. But I don't think that's a legitimate injury updated report. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see if he starts getting in practices. DK Metcalf avoided serious injury to his knee. Fab, you were saying it's a projected week 11 return from what you were reading. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I read online. Yeah, it looks like he's going to be there for week
MCL.
11. So it's
Okay.
nothing,
Oh man,
again,
that's
like
5
week
weeks.
to week.
That's 4 or 5 weeks.
Week 11, eh? Is that how? Wait, that's a grade 1 MCL sprain. That's how long it takes.
That's a 4-week. It's a 4-week.
Yeah.
8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah.
I'll be firing up
makes sense.
JSN as bad as he's been. Juju Smith-Schuster was sidelined by a hamstring injury in the fourth quarter. Andy Reid confirmed he will not play in Week 8 against the Raiders. Speaking of those Raiders, Aidan O'Connell has a broken thumb. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. The Rams might have some wide receiver depth coming back with Cooper Kupp back in Week 8. Maybe Puka Nacua in Week 9. That's a Thursday Night Football game against the Vikings. Hopefully that'll be a good one. That looks like a good matchup, at least on the onset. And finally, Spencer Rattler. I know he had a hip pointer. Dennis Allen already confirmed that Rattler will be the starter if Carr cannot go, according to NOLA.com. So that's the injury update for this past Sunday games. In terms of Fab Waiver Wire, so in our Fab Waiver Wire segment, no buys in Week 8, which is great. There's 2 buys in Week 9, the Steelers and 49ers. And a reminder, we use Yahoo League and players who are at a under 50% threshold to determine who we will talk about in our segment. So the first...
no buys, eh?
No buys, no.
That's weird.
So Jacksonville,
feels like they changed the buys a bit. It feels like there used to be way more teams in. Like it used to be 4.
There was only 2 this week.
There was only 2 this week.
But the week before there was 4, I think.
It must have to do with the increased the extra game, the 17th game. I would have to think
because before there's got to be a lot of factors.
Like 4 to 6 at a time. So this first part of the waiver wire segment, these are guys who you should try to spend some money on. We think that they could be potentially make or break players for your team. So at the QB position, I say make or break, and then I mention Marcus Mariota, Mason Rudolph. Mariota is 0% owned. Rudolph, I believe, is 0% owned as well with Levis week to week. There's Russell Wilson with the Steelers, who's 7% owned. Drake Maye, 16% owned, who had a really good game against the Jaguars. And for the Browns, there's DTR, who's 0% owned, and Jameis Winston, 1% owned. Fab, who out of the QBs do you like and would want to spend some Fab budget on?
I can't say it enough, but Drake Maye, we've touched on it quite a bit last week, and I'm going to just ring that bell again. Drake Maye is getting it done 2 weeks in a row now, 20-plus fantasy points. He's moving the offense. He's looking efficient. He's getting it done with his legs. He's one guy that I would definitely spend now Like, give me like at least 20, 25% for the fab on that. And I would say the exact same thing for Russell Wilson as well. Without a doubt in my mind, those are guys you spend big, big, big money on for your fab, especially in 2 quarterback and super flex leagues. Those guys can definitely help you out for the remainder of the season because it seems like they're going to be starters for the remainder of the season. An interesting one that I like a lot is Jameson Winston. I've always been a
Jameis.
risk it, no biscuit or risk it fan, whatever it's called there, like no biscuit, no risk it for Jameson Winston. I mean, obviously, you have to wait a little bit more to see exactly what the quarterback situation is going to be, but he should be the guy in that offense. He should be the one slinging the rock over there, despite what happened over the weekend with him being inactive. He's going to throw it a lot. You're going to get a lot of interceptions, but at least it's going to make for some potentially high-scoring fantasy outputs. Those are the guys I'll spend a lot more money on too. Like Jameson Winston, I'm looking more like towards the 10 to 15, but I'm definitely targeting Russell Wilson and Drake Maye.
Knack, give me someone else aside from Russell Wilson.
In the QB room?
if there's anyone you like in the QB on the QB side of the
Honestly, there's one guy who's probably going to generate a lot of buzz if Daniels is out, and that's Mariota. I still don't understand how he played so well coming off the bench, like Mariota. Like that was like super super surprising.
Oregon days, man. That's
Yeah,
like
I don't
Oregon
know,
Day
man.
Mariota.
That's crazy. Like I definitely wouldn't blow my load for him or Mason Rudolph for that matter. The Titans don't look great. And Levis, like as soon as he comes back, is taking back the reins from what the coach has said. But players I'm looking at really this week is if people drop JaJuan Jennings,
Yep.
now's the time to go back and pick him up. I
So
think
wait, let's just just close the book on the QBs for Mariota. If let's say Jaden Daniels is out this week and you're a Jaden Daniels owner, Knack, what would you put for him?
man,
And
I'd
would you put
I'd
it
go
would you
I'd
put
go
in an
after
amount
one of
so
the
that you would
others
start
if
him
it's there.
after?
That's the thing. Like
Because
if you're in a
they're
two
facing
QB,
the Bears.
if you're in a two QB league, when it says Daniels is not going to be out long, if you have another guy who could go in, like realistically, your second or third QB is probably better than Mariota. So unless you're really stuck, like maybe 5% maybe. Like again, I don't really like the matchup. I think he came on and Carolina's bad too, right, guys? Like
Yeah.
Carolina's just is the dumpster fire right now. So I think like that was very. This is a guy that some people might throw money at, and oh yeah, it's going to be a 1 week thing, right? Like Daniels has that backfield, right? So
Yeah,
that
I agree with you.
that QB position. So like I'm not going crazy.
I
I think
agree.
Fab alluded to it. It's Russell and May this week where you kind of go all in on.
100%.
Awesome. Moving on to the running backs. In this section, there's the Bills' Ray Davis, 26% rostered, 11.7 fantasy points. He had 13 snaps to Cook's 29 snaps. So that was an interesting, and he had a touch. They both had rushing touchdowns. His rushing touchdown he looked pretty good in. And then there's the Colts' Tyler Goodson, 15% owned, 11.10 fantasy points. The snap share was pretty much even between Sermon and Goodson. Trey Sermon had 32 snaps to Goodson's 30. And then we talked about we didn't talk about Ray Davis last week because it was during the Monday Nighter, but we did profile him in our Fab graphic. Knack, any thoughts on Ray Davis or Tyler Goodson? Goodson is interesting because Jonathan Taylor doesn't seem like it's a clear timetable for when he'll be back. Any willingness to put any money on those guys?
Yeah, if I'm really gonna put money on one of them, it's gonna be Ray Davis. You just alluded to it. He has a clear. Ever since he had that start and where he played really really well, it's kind of like that Bucky Irving kind of instance. Is that like he earned more touches. Tyrone Tracy, another one that
Yeah.
comes to mind. That they're just going to get involved in the offense and high powered offenses like those. You know, the Bills. I think he has flex value even with Cook playing, right? Whereas Tyler Goodson or even a Sermon, like those guys are just fill-ins, right? Like when Jonathan Taylor comes back, that backfield's his. Um, so I think I'd go more on Davis. I'm looking in somewhere in the even 15 to 20%, because anything happens to Cook and he is banged up, like he becomes that full throttle RB1 on that team. So yeah, if he's only 26% rostered, if he's not rostered in your league, like go get him, man. 15 to 20% easy,
I
maybe
love that.
more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that take because I was just looking at the Bills Reddit a bit just to see reactions, and a lot of Bills fans think that he might be the better runner. Cook
Hmm.
maybe the more
Yeah.
complete back
Yeah.
because he's a better pass catcher. So yeah, I really like that
He
take
runs
as well.
better through the tackles for sure.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
physical, more physical. Wide receiver is going to be really interesting this week. So Browns, Cedric Tillman, 0% owned, 18.10 fantasy points. It was interesting. I think a lot of people would have assumed either Elijah Mitchell or
More
Jerry Judy
Or
would have
Jerry
been the high
Judy.
target
Elijah
meter,
Moore.
but Elijah Moore, thank you. But 18 points, really good showing from Cedric Tillman. The big one, obviously, is with the 49ers, JaJuan Jennings, 29% owned, Ricky Pearsall, 13% owned. Obviously, Jennings had those two big games against the Pats and the Rams when Deebo and Kittle were out. And then there's the Bills, Keon Coleman, 32% owned, 16.5 points. He had catches of 55 and 44 yards against the Titans on Sunday. Fab, who do you like out of these four guys?
Oh, JaJuan Jennings. Like, I think he has to be the guy to target, right? I mean, we just spoke about it now about how Deebo Samuel there is no timetable for his return with his illness. So it could be a multi-week absence, could be 1 week, whatever. But at the same time, Brandon Ayuk is gone for the rest of the season. So there's going to have to be some sort of target that's going to be funneling his way. And when I say his way, I mean JaJuan Jennings. He already has that rapport with Purdy. He has the history with him already. He's in the system. Like, from my opinion, I don't see how you can't invest a little bit of your leftover fab on JaJuan Jennings in that respect. Ricky Pearsall is interesting too, but I think this just props up JaJuan Jennings more than Ricky Pearsall.
I was just going to say, Nak, can you make the case for Ricky Pearsall over JaJuan Jennings?
No,
No.
I think he missed a lot of the beginning of the season, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
getting shot. He's going to need he's going to need reps. And I think Brock Purdy will probably favor JaJuan Jennings. You're probably going to get an upstick in targets from George Kittle as well, who's already being um, involved in the offense week in and week out. I think JaJuan Jennings is going to be very costly this week. He's going to be one of the guys that probably gets them like drop down to 29% ownership. This guy was way over 50 for a
Yep.
week, right? Um, it's gonna cost a lot, and I think this is the guy you want to get if you're struggling at wide receiver. Easily 25-30% of your fab budget.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nak, you zagged there because I thought you were gonna. I was getting flashbacks of Dontavian Wicks, where you're gonna say, don't blow your fab budget on JaJuan Jennings."
no, well, Wicks, guys, I don't know. Has he done anything special? He scored this weekend,
He
actually.
scored
No,
Good
this
for
it's
him.
weekend,
no,
man.
but I agree with you,
Good
and
for
I
him.
thought JaJuan Jennings looked really good. Obviously the 11 for 175 game, 3 TDs versus the Rams. Hard
Yeah,
to say.
that's a
Was it an
big outlier.
aberration or is it
Yeah,
but
he's not gonna have one of those games again.
yeah,
But I mean, he's more familiar in
yeah.
the offense, and I think you're going to have more trust in Jennings than Purcell. Not to say that Purcell's not going to have a role, which he most likely will. Um, but I'll go all in more on Jennings than I will Purcell.
Yeah, he's gonna have a role in that offense, and whatever little production Brandon Ayuk was getting, you can assume that JaJuan Jennings is gonna get the same thing, if not more.
I'd be willing to throw maybe just $5 on Cedric Tillman. I thought big body receivers, 6'3", 215, had some really good numbers at Tennessee. I was looking at his 2021 season, 64 catches, 1,081 yards. I think Jalen Hyatt was on that team too, and thought he played really well with DTR. Remains to be seen how he would fare with Jameis Winston, but I think Cedric Tillman could be an interesting one, maybe just to plus
The
5 to 10
it's
It's
12
funny
targets.
because
12
it's funny
targets
because
exactly.
Yeah,
it's funny because they said that Moore was going to be more involved this week. Like he was going to be more involved or whatever. Like Jerry
That's been
Judy,
a
like where are you?
disaster.
Where's
Yeah,
Jerry Judy? You traded for a guy, and like where is he, man?
yeah.
I don't know. I gave him a last chance last year, and it just Jerry Jeudy just he doesn't care enough. I don't think, man. That's what I think it is. I think he's just there
Yeah,
for a paycheck and move on.
I would agree with that. In terms of ahead of the curve, so these are players typically owned between 0 and 5% that you can get at low cost before the market catches up. So at QB, we have Drew Lock and Bryce Young. Fab, Drew Lock, I know we talked about Daniel Jones being benched in week 4 in the fourth quarter. Brian
Mhm.
Daboll said that Jones gives him the best chance to win going forward. And I know we said we wouldn't talk about the Giants anymore, but I think it's interesting with the injury guarantee that Daniel Jones has. At some point, if the team is, call it, I don't know how many wins they have now, like 2-8,
Like
2-9.
2-5, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, if they go 2-8, 2-9, at one point do you just not allow Daniel Jones to get into the building anymore because you're afraid that he might get injured walking down the stairs or with a paper cut?
Yeah, from a real football standpoint, Daniel Jones should be benched next week because you don't want to be on the books for that $25 million guarantee contract that's going to happen if he gets hurt, which is much more likely now that Andrew Thomas is no longer in the lineup. And he got sacked 9 times last game. Yes, the Steelers are a fantastic defense, but that's not to say that it's not going to happen at least another 4. You could expect him to get sacked like 4 or 5 times a game at this point now. So I don't see the benefit from a real football perspective, from a financial perspective, from a team perspective of starting Daniel Jones. You're not going to get much worse with Drew Lock there, quite frankly. You might even get better, actually. So, and you also have no risk as well. Yeah, no, I don't want Tommy DeVito there, to be honest with you. I don't. Whatever.
Drew Lock.
Start
Drew
him. I don't
Lock,
really care.
baby.
As long as it's not Daniel Jones that's playing,
He's
I don't really
invited
care
to
if it's Tommy
the
DeVito or
cookouts,
what.
Rod.
It's just
He's invited to the
this.
cookouts.
This is
Oh, I
a
miss
mockery.
my
This is a
my guy,
mockery to
man.
me.
I love Drew
This is a
Lock.
mockery.
Drew Lock.
I love Drew Lock, man.
Yeah, I like Drew Lock's swag, man. Like,
Yeah,
like
he's moxie.
he had a few spot starts for Seattle last year, and one game he actually beat the Giants, and he looked good. He's not a bad quarterback by any means. So
He's the type of guy that like galvanizes a room. Like I feel like Jones just like you have like negative aura. You have like no moxie. Like just nothing at all. Like just,
not to go back too early within the podcast, but Nak, you touched upon about how Aaron Rodgers' comments and everything like that. I feel like that team comes out flat a lot of time because Rodgers isn't that. Like he doesn't have that aura about him where like he riles the guys up and gets everybody hyped and all that. And it brings me back to I think it was a Thursday night game where they inducted Drew Brees into the Ring of Honor. And you guys remember Drew Brees' pregame speeches in the huddle where he got everyone pumped up and jacked and ready to go. Like obviously Daniel Jones isn't that guy. That's fine. No. Drew Lock could be that guy. No, but not to that extent, obviously. But like it just gives you the different type of moxie that these quarterbacks have and how it can help them in the room. And I think that's more Drew Lock than Daniel Jones, 100%.
What do you think his pickup line was to Kay Adams?
You like my beard? You want to go for a smoothie?
She disputed that.
Honestly, I don't even think Kay Adams was even listening to what
Evans
he was saying.
Is dead.
Yeah.
Oh no. He scored a touchdown already. So, quickly, Bryce Young. I think just worth a speculative ad. I think you could probably get him at $1, 1%. Like Dalton's lost 4 in a row. At some point, they have to go back to Bryce.
If they haven't switched it yet, like, when are they going to switch it? What's the point?
They've lost 4 in a row, and Dalton's look just as bad.
Yeah, of course, but the team is just bad.
Yeah. On the running back front, there's Kendre Miller, 4% owned. There's some Alvin Kamara trade rumors. Put in Trey Benson there, 15% owned. Connor lost some work to Benson in week 6, and on average, he's missed 4 games per year on average since 2022.
We're going to obviously find out more tonight. But yeah, I saw that and I love this call because this could be a very nice stash for the rest of the season. It could also be like another Irving type of stash that they have for Tampa Bay, where eventually he eats into the competition. He creates a timeshare, even takes out the top dog role.
And I think Kendre Miller looked pretty explosive at the end of the Thursday night game. And Nak, you've had Kamara for quite a few years, and I'm sure you're used to the fact that he was never really always the main dog like he is now. I feel like he's almost getting overused, similar to
He
how
is.
Austin Eckler used to get overused. And Kamara works better with like a Mark Ingram type, or
Yes.
I
Those were the
think Pierre
best
Tom. I
receivers
think
that
I
he
think
had.
Pierre Thomas.
Yep.
I think Pierre Thomas was there
But he was
when he
never
was
a good runner. Like he was never a good RB, right?
in between the
His
tackles. Yeah,
Yeah.
numbers like this year, I think he's down to like 3.3 yards per carry. Like he does a lot more of it catching it and in space and
yeah,
he's never like that efficient of a runner. He's had his good years, obviously, but again, you alluded to it. He was doing it like he was carrying it a lot less than he is now, right? He is more of that dog. The last couple of
yeah,
years, he's been that guy. I think he was over the 4.4 yards per carry back in his prime. But again, he had Mark Ingram there. He was able to get the rest. He was do more
exactly.
change of pace, third down, back type guy. So
Yeah,
um, I don't know. He shut down trade rumors as like he's not going anywhere. He's happy type deal. But again, we all know it's a business, and I think he's out of
yeah,
contract at the end of the year as well.
yeah.
So if
I
they can
think
get something for him,
exactly. And I think just for Miller, again, he fits the mold of like more of a traditional back, which I could see them maybe gravitating more towards. They're 2-5, so they
yeah,
gotta figure something
if you
out
have
too.
room on your
Yeah,
bench, by all
speculative
means,
ad.
it's a good stat.
Yeah,
Like a Camaro owner, maybe grab him.
yeah. And then we'll go quickly. Wide receiver Mecole Hardman, 0% owned. He had 2 carries, 38 yards. He had a rushing TD. Maybe kind of taking over that Xavier Worthy role with the more gadget plays. And again, Juju Smith-Schuster looks like he's going to be out in week 8 against the Raiders. So maybe Mecole Hardman, it might be just be worth a 5% stash, because the Chiefs wide receiving core is a mash unit. The
It's
one I like,
decimated.
yeah, absolute decimation. The one I like a bit more is Noah Gray, 1% owned. 10.6 points. I believe he had 4 catches, about 60 something yards. He always seems like he has every other game. Mahomes looks at him more so than Kelsey. I think he's maybe more of a, again, 5%. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I wouldn't go crazy on him, but I could see him maybe benefiting a bit more than say like a Mecole Hardman, who's again more of a gadget player. And lastly, a deeper cut at tight end, 4th-round rookie with the Panthers, Jatavion Sanders, 1% owned, 12.10 points. He had 6 catches and 61 yards against the Commanders, 6 targets. And he could get increased targets if Deontay Johnson ends up being traded. And even over his past 3 games, he's had a 20% target share and at least 5 targets in each game. So I had heard a little bit about him when I was following the draft. He played at Texas, some solid stats at Texas. I believe his last 2 seasons, he was at 613 receiving yards and 682 receiving yards. So for a tight end in college, it's actually pretty good, because tight ends aren't always featured that much in the college game. So I think it could be a really interesting ad there. Again, probably not many people know about him, so you could probably get him for like 0 to 5%.
Could you imagine Deontay Johnson being traded to like the Chiefs?
It would make sense.
They don't seem to be in a rush to get guys who don't know the system.
Yeah.
You'd have to imagine MVS is going there at some point.
No, he was just he just signed with the Saints.
Yes, I did see that. Yes, good call. That makes no sense. Why would the Saints need
Yeah, I don't know.
MVS?
I didn't get it either.
Well,
To
Well,
tell you the truth,
they need wide
they need
receivers right now.
bodies. They need bodies, so it kind of makes a little
they're
bit of
lacking,
sense. But
yeah,
because even Olave is still in concussion protocol.
yeah,
correct. And then on the cut the cord segment, finally, Nike I'm assuming Nike put Justin Fields. Maybe give some rationale on this one.
yeah. Look, after that performance, it's going to take some serious bad play from from Russell Wilson to get put on the bench for Justin Fields, like benching your actual starter for the backup. This would be a crazier benching than Fields sitting for Russell Wilson, I feel. And yeah, like they're 5-2 right now. Russell Wilson looked really good. Fields will come on the field. They're supposed to be making packages for him, but you can't keep Justin Fields for maybe five plays a game down the line. So if you have Russell Wilson, great. If not, go get him, and you can definitely get rid of Fields.
Nak, I'm just curious, do you think he's at least the QB of the future, or let's say in like 2 years after Russ
Yeah,
is
look, I honestly thought that's what it was at the beginning, but now, like, if they like Russell Wilson, do they try to sign both to contracts? Like, they're not going to command huge numbers. Fields, like, there wasn't that much buzz or people trying to acquire him even last year, and he went for what, a 6th round pick, right? So maybe they try to get them both signed, but there was rumblings that they will maybe try to sign Wilson to like a two-year extension type deal, depending on how this season shapes out. Or else, yeah, like Fields is in the building. There's no need to possibly go draft one. It's probably the guy that you're gonna groom for the future. It's gonna depend, I guess. Whatever Mike Tomlin wants, he gets.
Russell
End of the day.
Wilson, man. Is he still, does he have a catchphrase? Is he doing like "Here we go" or like "Go Steel" or "Go Iron"?
Oh man, I don't know. It's hard to keep up with his quirkiness, man.
But he hasn't come up with one for Pittsburgh yet. For Steel
Steelers
City.
country, let's well.
Oh my god! Wow.
That's a great way to end this edition of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. As always, rate, follow, and subscribe on all our socials and your podcast platform of choice. Please look out for our Fab and Waiver Wire picks on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well. And we'll have our Love Hate Week 8 episode coming the following day after you listen to this episode. On behalf of Nak and Fab, I'm Raj, and we will see you next time.
Cue the music,
Peace out,
baby.
Everyone. Raj, you haven't talked about Kyle Pitts yet. It's 3 games in a row. He has double-digit fantasy points. You don't want to talk about him?
I saw that, and
He was picked up for a lot in our league, eh?
I have to say, a lot of people are listening to our in the Bush League are listening to our above the curve, ahead of the curve, above the curve.
For sure. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, of course.
They better.
We just need them to reshare and follow and like and subscribe. You know who you are, guys.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
We do appreciate you, but please follow, like, and subscribe. Goodbye.
Peace.
Goodbye.